Many years ago, humanity was living in a different age. This previous era I speak of began around the time René Descartes wrote his Discourse on the Method of Rightly Conducting One's Reason and of Seeking Truth in the Sciences. In the year 1637 AD, Descartes penned and published, among other words, an objective that would define the next few hundred years of human civilization. This objective comes from part 6 of the Discourse on Method, in which Descartes lays out what he sees as the purpose of scientific experimentation and study. That is, as a practical philosophy, to gain knowledge useful for living, for the invention of an infinity of devices that would enable one to enjoy trouble-free the fruits of the earth, to render ourselves masters and possessors of nature. These words perfectly encapsulate an evolution in the common worldview of the time, that we could use observation and reason to build knowledge and better understand the world around us, and use this understanding to advance technology to improve our lives. Because we are not like other animals whose lives are determined by the state of nature and stagnant from generation to generation. We can take control of it, manipulate it, and build over it, so that our lives may be easier and happier, so that our children's lives may be better than ours, so that their children's may be even better into infinity. Since the 17th century, we have made advances in agriculture, allowing us to grow food for an incomprehensible number of people. We have advanced medicine to completely eradicate terrible diseases and more than double our lifespans. We made it possible to travel distances we once couldn't dream of. We gained the ability to fly with the birds, and then we surpassed even them. Our technological advancements culminating in the space race, culminating in humanity landing on the moon. The event most people probably see as the true furthest and most impressive place technological advancement has taken us. 1 year before this, 2001: A Space Odyssey was released. 2001 is written as a myth, a story meant to be central to the ideals of a society, and in this case, central to a new era of human evolution envisioned by the creators. It was produced towards the end of the era defined by our Enlightenment fixation on technological and scientific progress. Since then, we have not progressed in the direction it envisioned for us. The first thing we must acknowledge is that technology is cool. 2001, certainly, displays a great affinity for it. The movie itself is a technological marvel, with whole set pieces and sequences constantly forcing the viewer to ask, how the fuck did they even film this? And this just sells the power of what we see in the movie even more. The satellites and spaceships, the lunar base, the hyper-intelligent supercomputer are all presented with a feeling of grandiosity, in contrast with the human characters' usually mundane interactions and conversations. Everything around them is intricately designed, impressive in form, or massive in scale, and the movie is perfectly content with taking its time to simply stare, force us to take in every detail as a ship slowly drifts through space or as someone walks down a hallway, because these are all things that deserve amazement. This notion is conveyed not just through visuals or the script, but through music as well. The ships don't just float around in space, but appear to dance along to the classical soundtrack. This attaches the technology on display not just to a sense of complexity or literal size, but to a kind of more human feeling of beauty. But why does the movie do this? Why are spaceships cool, and why are they beautiful? And what does that even mean? Am I just saying stuff to sound smart? First, a different question. Should we build spaceships? Specifically, what is the point of the government funding space exploration? What do we actually gain from spending money on spaceships and stuff? And if there is anything, is it better than what we could gain from spending that money here on Earth? To answer this, we need to answer a different question. What makes something good? Lots of philosophers and whatever have discussed many different answers to this question, and I don't really care about a lot of them. I am a human, and so there's only one metric I care about by which to judge anything in the universe, which is the human experience, the experience of living. I see no point in judging stuff by any arbitrary or make-believe abstract principles, even if they're attached to a god who isn't real, by the way, and I actually see less of a point in judging stuff from a look at how small we are in the grand scheme of things kind of perspective. The only thing that matters in the universe is that we experience our sensations, our emotions, our thoughts, and our interactions with each other. And as we've all learned from our own conscious experience, that experience can feel some amount of bad and some amount of good. It can get better, it can get worse, and it can do both of those things at the same time at different rates and levels in different parts of our life. But basically, we want more of the good. In other words, we want to enhance our individual experience and that of those around us. After that point, you get to start debating over what rules need to be in place to do this and whatnot, but any philosophical system which does not ultimately aim at improving human human experience is worthless. So what is good? All that heightens the experience of living as a human. Include other animals and forms of life too if you want. It doesn't really matter for this video. Just know that nothing else makes sense. So what are some things that improve human experience? I lay before you 5 categories of things in order to make specific points, not to be a comprehensive list of every particular possible thing that could be related to this question. First, there is the satisfaction of material needs. The human experience is better when we are not dying, when we have access to food and water, when we have access to shelter, stuff like that. Second, there is a kind of simple pleasure. We can satisfy our material need for food, for instance, by eating anything with sufficient nutritional value. But you might notice when you eat good food, there is a pleasurable sensation you get from it. There are many of these simple, temporary pleasures to experience in life, and experiencing greater pleasure in greater number is an obvious improvement to our experience, at least when compared solely to having less pleasure, but we'll get back to that. Eating a good tasting cheeseburger is better than eating a bad tasting cheeseburger. Third, I'd like to say there's something similar to these temporary pleasures, but more complicated, in something we can call magnificence or beauty. In both nature and among our own human creations, we can find things that fill us with wonder. We might be hiking and stumble across a great view of the landscape, or we might be walking through a city and pass by a massive, intricately designed building. In both cases, we get a simple aesthetic pleasure from the pretty image we're looking at, but I also think there's a bit more that we get out of it. They prompt us to feel more complicated sensations, or even think certain things. We feel the size and scale of the thing we're looking at in relation to ourselves, and especially in the case of the building, we are aware of the immense detail in the overall design and the smallest carvings repeated across the entire structure. We might think about how much human effort had to be put into such a project, and we might feel something from that powerful idea of someone or some group of people being so skilled and hardworking that they were able to design and build this. Even without having to phrase it exactly like that as a conscious thought in your head, you feel something like that, a deeper feeling than just the temporary aesthetic pleasure. And again, this comes from both our human creations and nature. Haven't you ever seen a beautiful sunrise? And just to sum up how this improves the human experience, just think about living in a cookie-cutter American suburb versus a lively European city street, starting every morning passing by the same plain houses or a bunch of detailed apartment facades. Getting more chances to experience beauty improves the experience of being alive as a human. Fourth, there is social interaction. Talking to people, having a pleasant conversation, whether it be your friends or your family or the cashier at the grocery store or some random guy waiting at the same bus stop as you. Any pleasant interaction with another human being is an improvement to our experience. I'm a firm believer that acting morally is something that improves our experience too. Just helping someone out with something, or even complimenting someone, whether they're a friend or a stranger, it feels good. I'd also like to mention experiencing art here, as it has elements of the last 3 categories all associated with it. There's of course simple aesthetic pleasure in art. An image is immediately pleasing to the eye, or a song is immediately pleasing to the ear. Then you might also feel a more complex sense of wonder due to the more specific intricacies of the art and what skill must have gone into creating it. And then, finally, there's also often a form of communication present in the art, when you're able to pick up on certain ideas the creator might be expressing and relating that to your own life or understanding of the world. Fifth is the development of skills meaningful to the individual person. I'm getting my mandatory Aristotle segment in. There's a feeling we get from working on improving our skills, realizing how much we've improved and achieving stuff with those improved skills, and that feeling is a good one. For Aristotle, it's an essential part of eudaimonia. Translate it as flourishing, as happiness, as contentment, whatever you call it. It's good. The clearest example of this for me is the creation of art. It can be drawing, painting, writing, creating music, and so much more. Getting better at whatever your craft is extremely gratifying. When your pen often seems to more effortlessly flow to recreate the image in your mind, when your ideas translate themselves onto the page with less resistance. There is the joy of creation, but also the satisfaction of being able to do things you couldn't before. That is the joy of growth, and it is undeniably something that improves the experience of living. Let's return to the previous question. If something is good, we should probably do more of it. If spaceships do something to enhance human experience, they are good, and therefore we should approve of building them. So, do they enhance the human experience? The answer comes from the greatest single cut in any movie ever created, where one of our ancestors, after learning how to use tools, throws a bone into the air, which transitions into a spaceship hovering above the Earth. With this one piece of editing, the film draws a connection between the bone tool and the spaceship, and the entirety of human progress between those those two moments. The triumphant montage and bombastic music leading up to the discovery of tool use indicates that it is good, and since this moment is connected to space travel, we must be able to figure out why spaceships are good through thinking about why the bone tool is good, and then maybe why all of technological progress is good. The first explanation that probably comes to mind as to why the bone tool is good is probably how it helps satisfy material conditions. The use of bone tools allows the tribe to kill animals and acquire food more easily, as well as defend their territory from an opposing tribe. More stable access to meat and water is surely a benefit to their lives. This kind of argument is probably the easiest way to convince someone that a technology is good. It directly improves your material standard of living. In the Discourse on Method, Descartes specifically names the potential ability of his infinity of devices to help people enjoy trouble-free the fruits of the earth, and it's the argument he tends to fall back on as he spends a while after that statement talking specifically about the benefits of advancing medicine. These material benefits, though, are not what 2001 sees as the connective tissue between all technology. Even with just the bone tool, it doesn't seem to be so optimistic. One of its supposed benefits, the ability to better defend and take valuable territory, necessarily involves violence towards other ape people. Getting beaten to death can't be materially beneficial for this guy. He's not going to be enjoying any more fruits of the earth. And I mean, do spaceships really produce improvements to the standard of living as directly as tools helping us get food? I don't know. I try to tell myself perhaps it will allow us to harvest more resources from asteroids or something. Perhaps it will allow some new scientific discoveries that will allow the creation of technology more directly beneficial to people's lives. But these are far off hypotheticals, not tangible direct benefits, at least nothing as direct as the bone tool. And 2001 doesn't present any case for this either. Instead, remind yourself of the long drifting in space sequences, of the intricate designs, of the scale, and of the classical music. These elements aren't conveying some sort of utilitarian positive material effect of spaceships, they're attaching them to a sense of wonder, and along with the jump cut from the bone tool, the movie seems to point to something special, something meaningful, something beautiful about our ability to advance. There is something undoubtedly awesome and sick and fulfilling with regards to advancing our abilities to travel through space, already communicated so effectively in the movie. To be able to say, we went from a state of subsistence, barely surviving, to floating among the stars. Something that was previously impossible was made possible. The human experience was actually expanded with new potentials. And that's exactly it, isn't it? Going to space is a symbol of humanity's ability to transcend our natural state. The invention of tools is the same. We became able to kill things at a rate that would otherwise be impossible. They are both representations of our ability to make ourselves superior to nature, to shape it to achieve what we want. And as opposite ends of the jump cut representing all of technological progress, they fold all of technology into this framework as well, allowing us to render ourselves masters and possessors of nature, as Descartes put it. Technology might not always have direct, obvious, or purely good material benefits for everyone, but it is always cool to recognize the expansion of the potential of human experience through technology, and spaceships might just be the ultimate representation of that concept, as they allow us to not just rise above the ground we were once anchored to, but even transcend beyond the planet we were born on. They are the literal highest point we have achieved, and I think that symbolically connects them to all the other innovations and their more tangible benefits to the human experience. Everything becomes tied together in this idea of technology allowing us to evolve ourselves, improve our lives, and spaceships are a great symbol of that. Recognizing this idea, even if not a fully formed conscious thought in exactly those words, results in wonder, which improves the human experience, which makes spaceships good, which means we should build more of them, if we can. Descartes was able to define an era of humanity based on this valuation of technology, an optimistic vision in which the progress of science would always lift us above our previous limitations and benefit humanity. And I mean, for a while after he wrote his paper, technology did seem to keep expanding our possibilities, and benefits to other facets of human life seemed to follow closely. We eradicated disease and brought a level of prosperity unimaginable previously. We made it to the moon, and it was awesome. Descartes inscribed his words with ink on paper by the light of the candle, and I now write underneath an electric lamp with no ink and no paper at all. But you're smart, and you should already be onto me. It's not so simple. I made that short list of things which improve the human experience, and everything there is good on its own. But while the should we build spaceships question seems to lead us to an indication that they are good in some way, it also leads us to the possibility of trade-offs between different good things. If it comes down to it, do we prioritize wonder over material conditions? Do we prioritize spaceships over food? There might need to be some baseline of food and shelter provided, for instance, before we can worry about other good things. But also, some good things are much much more good than others. The tastiest cheeseburger probably doesn't reach the level of fulfillment you get from a good relationship or pursuing some dream you have, even if those things aren't the best they could possibly be. John Stuart Mill, when devising his model of utilitarianism, acknowledged this by presenting a kind of tiered system of higher and lower pleasures, in which the ability to even just strive for things like love or great wisdom or some incredible achievement is preferable to the deepest possible satisfaction of simpler pleasures. He expresses this in harsher terms than I would use when he writes, "Better to be a human dissatisfied than a pig satisfied." And this apparent need to determine which goods are preferable to which other goods challenges our technological optimism, even if all technology is unified in wonder, in the beautifully powerful idea of transcending our previous limitations. What if the pursuit of its progress prevents us from enhancing our experience in a more valuable way? And just a hypothetical for now, what if it actually hurts other facets of our experience? This foundation is more unstable than we might have first thought, and there's a potential tension lying underneath it, waiting for something new to come along and expose it. 2001: A Space Odyssey has this song in it. This is the fanfare of Richard Strauss's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, inspired by Friedrich Nietzsche's book of the same name. This connection to Nietzsche is not loose or coincidental. It is essential to understanding the end of the film. Nietzsche's broader philosophical project can be understood as a response to what he recognized as a crisis of values. For thousands of years, we had listened to the men who could interpret the old books. They told us that this material world was a terrible one, filled with suffering, in which dissatisfaction was inevitable and desires were not worth pursuing. But if we followed their rules and believed their stories, we would be sent to a more perfect reality after death. The problem was, human knowledge and reason had advanced to the point where it was increasingly easy to question religion, and maybe even impossible to believe in the existence of heaven and God. And if there is no spiritual world to reward us, what is the point of the morals we have come to value? And what is the point of putting up with the suffering we have been taught is inherent to the one world that exists, the one we experience, the material world? What conclusion are we supposed to come to, apart from the apparent fact that we have been condemned to live in an evil world bent on preventing us from attaining everything we could dream of, making sure we experience dissatisfaction and pain until we die? From this point of nihilistic despair, Nietzsche's mission becomes the affirmation of life, to make an argument for the value of human experience on Earth and the possibility of happiness. In particular, he stresses the ability to, or process of, overcoming resistance in the pursuit of our desires, and he articulates the importance of it. While there is pain in the world, especially pain caused by us being prevented from getting what we want, there is also satisfaction in overcoming the obstacles in our way, and greater satisfaction in becoming stronger to destroy larger obstacles. Perhaps the world is in constant war with us, in an attempt to prevent us from achieving what we want to achieve. But the answer is not to surrender. The answer is to learn to love the war, as it provides an endless opportunity to not just attain what you desire, but to vanquish the enemies that stand in your way as well. For further reading, watch Gurren Lagann. We have an insatiable drive to not just reach goals that are personally meaningful to us, but to overcome resistance to reaching our goals too, and to constantly desire greater goals that provide more resistance to overcome. This is growth, and for Nietzsche, it is happiness. And I think everyone should agree that it at least speaks to a truth about what makes our lived experience worth going through. And importantly, it does this by only referencing the material world, the real world. No magical realm or god is necessary to love life. And thus, he criticizes religions and other philosophers for espousing values that seem to deny life, for telling people to believe that this world is a terrible one to live in, for telling people to not pursue their desires. There is no heaven, there is no nirvana, there is no realm of forms. But in that, Nietzsche finds great opportunity. It makes our experience in this material world the only thing that matters. This is the only life you will have in the only world you will get to experience, and there's an infinite potential for happiness. So throw off the chains placed on you by these pessimistic anti-life priests and philosophers. Love the world, love the struggle, and live your life in this reality as the one you'd want to live forever. This is all that we have, but you should love that, and you should make the most of it by focusing on what brings you joy. With that, Nietzsche's overcoming of resistance applies itself not just towards the pursuit of typical, usual life goals, but in overcoming harmful ideas, valuations of aspects of our lives. What Nietzsche wanted for the humanity of his time was for people to finally transcend the limitations imposed by outdated moral, philosophical, and religious systems. Striving towards that transcendence is represented by the ideal he names in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the Übermensch, the overcoming of those old values, and man itself, as he puts it, the next evolution of humanity. 2001 ends with its own Übermensch, literally an evolved being ready to shape the future of the Earth. But I don't think I'd be convinced by someone telling me this is just the same ideas Nietzsche put down. This movie doesn't really have anything to do with the death of God or the religious life negation Nietzsche dealt with at his time. There's a different set of values 2001 is concerned with, which Dave overcomes in order to reach Übermensch status, symbolically. Before we get to that, I want to point out that the movie starts with an Übermensch as well. The Dawn of Man sequence showcases humanity's first transcendence over the bounds of animal life through the use of tools, through technology. We can see this as the beginning of a new era defined by the value of technology, as discussed in the spaceships section. Technology is seen as a beneficial tool that allows man to rise above previous limitations. This era then continues for all of human history, as represented by the bone to spaceship cut, and so it is this era that Dave finds himself in. Humanity's valuation of technology has culminated in the creation of HAL 9000, a piece of technology which seems to follow in the technological tradition by automatically running the ship's systems and thereby making space travel easier, but also represents something new. The HAL 9000 computer is built to be smarter than man, to be superior to man, to replace man, and ultimately becomes a threat to man. In order to save his own life, Dave has to defeat HAL and destroy him, and doing so is the climax of his journey to the ominous black rectangle. This journey is an adoption of Nietzsche's process to our relationship with technology. Dave finds himself in an era in which technology is valued very optimistically. This dominating value is unable to recognize the threat that HAL poses, but by overthrowing the technological threat and his dependence on it, Dave challenges that previous value. Technology is no longer an inherent good. By destroying HAL, he establishes his human life as a good higher than the advancement of technology and overcomes the values of the existing era, which makes him an Übermensch. This journey is also symbolized by the weird fucking room that Dave gets put in at the end of the movie. The valuation of technology Dave comes into conflict with begins in the movie with the monkeys, but in real life begins philosophically with the writings of philosophers like Descartes. The weird room is styled with neoclassical architecture associated with the Enlightenment, which many mark the beginning of with the publication of the Discourse on Method. But the room also features this futuristic lit-up floor. Its design takes imagery from the start of this era and the future or end of it, and Dave has to pass through this before evolving. He dies in the era of technology and is reborn to start whatever the next era is. Maybe there's some discomfort to be had with the idea of being fundamentally altered into an unknown being by something even more powerful, which we also don't understand. But my most devoted followers will know I've already expressed my fondness for suicide or self-destruction as a metaphor for growth, so I'm gonna hold firm in reading Dave's journey as a good development. And in the theming of the movie, the Star Child isn't supposed to be taken so literally. Nietzsche's Übermensch wasn't even really a final singular state to be reached. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche states that what is great about man is that he is a bridge and not an end. It is the constant striving to evolve, and not some specific set of final ethical traits, for instance, that defines this Übermensch thing. It's the process of overcoming, not something you become. When Nietzsche writes that man is something that shall be overcome, he doesn't mean this is an event that will happen once and then we will be different beings. Instead, this describes a constant process. However man currently exists shall be overcome, and whatever man becomes will be overcome as well. We are always a bridge and never an end. So when Nietzsche describes a human of the future who will redeem us from the previous ideal and that which was bound to grow out of it, this exists in every era with regards to whatever issue exists at that time. There will always be problems we face created by dominating ideals which must be overcome. There will always be opportunity for us to evolve. This is what the floating orb baby represents, the Übermensch of its time, or the process of overcoming the conditions caused by the problematic valuations existing in the current era. Nietzsche recognized that his era's prevalent life-negating, world-denying values were leading to suicidal nihilism, and he prescribed replacing them with a focus on affirming the value of our lives and the possibilities for happiness around us. 2001, meanwhile, recognizes a kind of technological optimism, which has taken us to genuinely magnificent places, but proposes a recalibration, kind of how we view technology. As discussed in the previous section, the movie conveys great reverence for the evolution of humanity in a way that reflects the satisfaction Nietzsche describes coming from the conquering of greater and greater obstacles, and it recognizes technology's great importance in that process. But our growth does not come from merely technology. The drive to evolve comes from within ourselves. It's an inherent trait of humanity, not of technology. The advancement of technology is a mere tool to aid in our evolution, and not an end in itself, which is why the movie concludes with Dave going down the path that leads to his evolution as a human at the detriment of one of humanity's greatest technological achievements. And 2001 seems to propose that not taking this view will lead to our destruction. To believe otherwise is life-negating, in the same sense that Nietzsche Nietzsche would have used the term, just coming from a different source. I don't think the film wants a halt on all technology or something. It still showcases that spaceships are really cool, and maybe the HAL 9000 computer is really cool too. But there's a difference between these two technologies. HAL kills people, and if his existence makes people's experience worse by doing that, Dave is right to destroy him. Technology is only valuable in the attainment of greater human experience. That is its purpose, because that is our highest goal, and we are the masters of technology. If it starts to hurt us, we need to remember that we can annihilate it. Technology rendered us masters over nature, but we must also remain masters over technology. I don't want to be called a Luddite in the comments section, so I'll demonstrate what I'm saying with a concrete example. The atomic bomb. Hundreds of thousands of deaths, constant overhanging possibility of global annihilation, but also nuclear energy is pretty cool. Recalibrating the valuation of technology to prioritize human experience does not mean banning all nuclear tech due to the threat it potentially poses to humanity. Instead, it means we have to be careful and critical. We have to think about the good and bad effects of specific technologies on us, how they should be integrated into society, and how we should integrate them into our individual lives. We can build nuclear power plants, but maybe we shouldn't nuke each other or keep atomic warheads in our pockets. We build machines to benefit us, for our evolution, and the belief in the ability of science and technology to improve our lives has taken us literally to the moon. But 2001 seems to say that maybe this optimism has become too entrenched. Maybe we started to think that technological progress could only enhance and expand our experience. Maybe we started to believe that it was the only thing that would do so, and we started to neglect the need to evaluate if technology is helping or hurting us, and how we can actually best incorporate advancements into society for the purpose they were meant for, to improve our experience living in this universe. 2001 was written from the perspective that this uncritical valuation of technological progress would ultimately in the future lead to the existence of technology that does not solely enhance the human experience, but reduces it, and even directly threatens and harms it. But we could avoid this future if we choose to recalibrate on the priority of our own evolution, if we work towards our transcendence over Enlightenment technological optimism now. But Kubrick's now was 1968. Where have we gone since then? Close your eyes. Imagine a toaster. Picture it in your mind and rotate it. Now imagine you are a corporation that produces and sells this toaster. For a long time, your goal was to produce the best toaster, one that toasted things just right, one that was well designed so that people could toast things easily, and one that was as durable and reliable as possible so that people could buy your toaster and be confident they would be able to toast things for the foreseeable future without some sort of broken toaster issue. Achieving perfection in all of these elements was held back by the limitations of technology, of course. But suppose sometime in the 1960s, technology advanced far enough that you could build such a perfect toaster, which toasted everything so perfectly and easily and it never broke. Now, you can sell the objectively best item on the market and everyone in the world will benefit by owning your product. Perfect, right? No, not really. You are a corporation. You live off the sale of the toaster. Sure, maybe this toaster is the highest possible quality, but isn't it a problem for you if people only ever have to buy one toaster, which never breaks, and thus only that one toaster? Maybe you should purposefully avoid producing such a perfectly durable toaster. Maybe every year you sell a different version of the toaster, adding certain features that make it easier to use, but removing ones that would improve the quality of the toast. Then next year you re-add toast improving qualities to hype people up, but remove some ease of use features. Just some ideas. Basically, you reach a point of volatile stagnation with the potential to get closer to perfection, but you avoid it. This is only one illustrative example of what defines our current moment as different from the era defined by Descartes' technological optimism. You can open your eyes, by the way, if you still had them closed. Technological advancement still happens, of course, but we don't have the same consistent reverence for it anymore, because we all know that much of the technology we interact with isn't there to be marveled or make our lives better. It's there as a product to be sold to us, or as a prop for speculative investment. That's primarily the fault of the corporations, but they've roped us in as part of the problem as well. We are force-fed worse products that aren't meant to be beautiful, and we have nothing to do about it. No backlash, no resistance, because the rot is everywhere. Does technology even seek to make impossible things possible anymore? Does it seek to expand the human experience, let alone improve what we already have? You can find some science news article for me, but it's going to be something with effects you know haven't reached you. They are not the technologies you find actually impacting your everyday life. Is the human experience expanded by having products designed to break, by being sold food engineered to be more addicting and less healthy in smaller amounts at the same price? Do I feel more like a master and possessor of nature when I spend hours of my day doom scrolling? Is my well-being improved when I decide to not learn something because ChatGPT can just tell me the answer on my homework or write an entire essay for me? What is really being advanced here? Or does technology seem to be increasingly applied towards holding us in the same place? If anything, regressing us, hurting us, and not elevating anyone, not even those who sit on top. Their wealth might bring them joy for now, but but they too will find themselves in the dead, empty world they're marching us towards. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. What I want to say is, we have transitioned into an era of stagnation, and I stand by that, not despite, but because. Two of the most important advancements of the 21st century are the smartphone and artificial intelligence. The world envisioned for us, resulting from this era of stagnation, is one where the full potential of our experience is confined to the inside of a dwelling, devoid of beauty, isolated from other people, closed off from our own growth, only satisfied in our base material needs and a thin veil of temporary slop pleasure. This follows almost entirely from the two dominating technologies I named, which are now actively harming the human experience: the smartphone, particularly with social media, and artificial intelligence. And maybe this seems a bit strange to some, as I am both a writer, a skill which a lot of people feel is becoming more accessible to them due to AI, and a YouTuber, and thus a contributor to the endless sea of content on the internet. I'll admit, I do find myself in a weird spot where my most successful passion is writing scripts to be made into videos to be posted online. I'm studying data science in school, and at the same time, I've become increasingly aware of major problems resulting from the social media I post on and the implementations of the machine learning algorithms I study. I am standing behind you, but if you turn around, you will not see me, and the voice you hear comes not directly from my mouth, but from your headphones or your device's speakers. I'm not speaking to you in person, face to face, and yet I am able to communicate with you. I'm able to share my thoughts with a much larger audience than I would be able to without social media, and I'm able to interact with the genuine thoughts and feelings of plenty of other people as well. There is actual good in the ability of the internet to allow people from all over the world to interact like this, and likewise, there are applications of machine learning which have utility. I recognize this, but I also believe there is a desperate need for increased regulation, and every day I hear about something that further pushes me towards thinking we need a real-life Butlerian jihad. My mission today, though, simply follows from the narrative of this old, pretentious-ass movie I watched, to tell you to be critical about these technologies, not to entirely reject them, but to really think about how they may be hurting you, and to choose the improvement of your own experience over the persisting presence of them in your life. First, on social media, I'll give a paragraph to some stuff you've definitely already heard in some headlines your mom shared with you. Social media makes people more depressed. It allows misinformation to spread. It creates echo chambers. Children won't get off their phones in class, and it's hurting people's attention spans. You have to understand that these aren't just random percentages. You are the one being affected, and you know it already. You're aware of the attention deficit disorder you're giving yourself scrolling through whatever short-form video platform you use, and you're aware that you're kinda addicted. You scroll down your explore feed telling yourself you'll stop at the next good post, or you refresh the top of your homepage mindlessly awaiting another post to appear. I know you know, because I watched you like that meme about it, but are you gonna do anything about these problems? I mean, what else are you going to spend the day doing? Many ancient philosophers have given their own variations of the same piece of wisdom. You only live once, so make sure to spend as much time on computer as possible. When we hear this joke, we immediately recognize it as a joke because it points to a truth we all already recognize. First, we know that computers weren't around back then. Second, and more importantly, we recognize that the computer time mentioned in the joke is actually taking away time that could be spent on things that are actually meaningful to us. We immediately think to ourselves, haha, I don't actually want to spend as much time as possible scrolling through Twitter, a mere temporary pleasure, simple and easy but not as fulfilling as other things I could be doing. I should divert more of my limited time on this earth towards things that enhance my experience at a greater level. I should be taking a nice walk by the lake. I should be hanging out with my friends. I should be writing that story I've been thinking about, or recording a song, or learning how to make jewelry or crochet. I mean, you could even read that book, or watch that show or movie you've heard so much about. You might not be creating something or building some skill, but at least then there's potential to engage with complex ideas, narratives, beauty, extensively crafted by another human. We have an immediate understanding that there are higher goods we'd like to pursue over the simple, temporary pleasure we might get from our social media feeds. We want to feel wonder. We want to interact with others. We want to improve ourselves and achieve things. So get yourself away from the instant gratification slop that you'll forget not even 5 minutes after your eyes drift over it. Every time you feel yourself reaching to open Twitter, ask yourself, is this really what I want to be doing right now? That takes discipline. So actually, I'm sending people to your house right now. They'll arrive in 3 to 5 business days, and whatever they find you doing, they're gonna lock you in a room and force you to do whatever that is forever. You better be doing some cool shit, because I don't think you choose an eternal recurrence of doom scrolling over an eternal recurrence of learning how to make beautiful art. Y'all should know that when I say stuff on this channel, I'm often telling it to myself just as much as I'm trying to get it across to other people. Every summer, I come home with an ambitious amount of projects floating around in my head. Possible YouTube videos, but also I write fiction, I draw comics, I make music, and I have plenty of books and films and other art I want to experience. Last summer, though, I got to very little of what I wanted, and it was really just because I was looking at Instagram and Twitter too much. I had stuff I wanted to write, but every time I hit a slight block of inspiration, I opened Twitter to read what people were saying about the election, selection, and then suddenly an hour would be gone. So over the last year, I have literally put screen time limits on these apps and incrementally decreased the amount of time I can spend on them daily. And I do feel kind of pathetic having to have even thought about doing this in the first place, but the amount by which I've felt better about my life since doing this has been really surprising, because this has really been a problem for a while. Have you ever done barely anything important for a whole day, and yet it felt like it went by way too quickly? You have something you want to work on, but you trap yourself on the couch occupied with some time-wasting bullshit, and then find that so much of the day has disappeared? It's not a great feeling. But now, a year later, the days feel long again. My prescription towards social media is not a complete rejection of it in your everyday life. I believe there is genuine good in more easily being able to keep in touch with friends regardless of geographic distance, and I also like that the internet has created a kind of infinite town square to share ideas in. But the incentives that exist for social media companies do not lead them down a path that would encourage these elevations of the human experience. Algorithms encourage slop, instantly forgettable content that makes everyone stupid and traps them away from more meaningful activities, because the technology does not exist to encourage beauty or human well-being. It exists to earn money for shareholders. They can try to mask this by pitching their platforms as facilitators of social interaction, and sometimes it serves a purpose there. But we're also slowly manipulated into talking to people online when in-person interaction is possible, and slowly, our typical means of socializing, seeing someone face to face, meeting for a drink or a light meal to have a natural conversation, taking a stroll through a park or down a lively city street, smiling at the friendly faces passing by, maybe waving to someone else you know, is replaced by anxiously waiting for notifications, not opening DMs immediately so you don't mark their message as read, while planning out every word and punctuation mark in your response. These algorithms alter your behavior down to the way you speak and think. They incentivize the use of algorithm-friendly language, preventing us from talking about serious topics properly, and they breed a culture of irony in which genuine expression is often mocked and looked down on reflexively. We start to hide our passions and feelings behind the veil of a sarcastically phrased statement. We pretend we don't care that much, and that turns into an actual bottomless pit of apathy where our desires should be, down to our self-preservation. You know, it's actually not normal for the younger generation to care as little as ours does about the state of the world, about our future, especially with the multitude of uniquely threatening issues facing us. I could not imagine Gen Z fighting to end slavery or fascist tyranny across the ocean. We can't even get enough young people to fight for their own freedom here at home. This is all weakness. Be better, be stronger, own the shit you care about, brag about what you achieve, or you will fail to pursue your desires as much as you can, and you will fail to be as proud of your achievements as you could be, and you will die after digging your own grave because the fascists told you to, and standing up for yourself and those around you would have made you cringe or annoying or full of yourself. Stop saying unalive, learn how to say kill again. But the weakness is encouraged by an addictive, anxiety-encouraging corruption of social interaction, hoping to retain advertisers and keep you on the app as long as possible in the hopes that you'll see more of those ads, which slowly encroach on more and more of the page. Some of the effects are byproducts of this goal, but are being conditioned into mindlessly taking in instant gratification rather than pursuing the improvement of our skills, rather than achieving meaningful goals, rather than developing ourselves as people, rather than seeking genuine social interaction, is literally their goal. They want you. They need you to stay inside forever. So I stand by a prescription to be very critical of the time you spend on the internet, and probably reduce that time greatly, despite being entangled in the internet myself, and despite the potential good I see in it. My prescription towards artificial intelligence is a more extensive rejection. I know there's possible applications in medical stuff and whatever, that's not my target. AI is worming its way into much more everyday and personal spaces, and it is there that we must kill it. Maybe it can produce some temporary pleasure occasionally with an image that means nothing more than its shapes and colors. Maybe you'll laugh when ChatGPT outputs something mildly humorous, or it will temporarily decrease stress by writing you a job application you don't care that much about. I'll concede that there are small spaces like this which aren't actively harmful to the human experience. What I fear is people using AI for conversation or emotional support, which I've learned is actually a real thing people are doing now and not a joke. We are getting lonelier, like as a society, and people don't have the shoulders to cry on or even just the friends to talk to that they need. But this is nothing close to a solution. It will be part of the problem, and I refuse to live in a world where we live so stratified from each other that we can only satiate our need to interact by pretending collections of words soullessly vomited onto our screens can replace what we have lost. The AI chatbot does not know you. It does not see you. It does not understand you. It does does not understand anything. What you see on the screen is the output of a math formula designed to deceive you into thinking it does any of those things. But it is not a person or anything close to us. It is an object, and it is not meant to speak our language. And don't try to propose that our use of language isn't much more than that, just because our brain seems to operate by electrical signals. Are we not just machines made of flesh, outputting speech and action based on inputs in the same way as ChatGPT? Do not degrade yourself like this. You know your experience is more complicated than that. You are living it right now. We cannot lie to ourselves like this. We are meant to go outside and meet the eyes of our fellow human beings and smile and make noises at each other, and maybe that's hard. Maybe people stay inside because all the public spaces are stranded on the sides of ugly, massive roads. Maybe you don't have friends nearby. Maybe you think the only thing you can do is submit to mental illness, talking to a bot that will affirm anything you say. But you can be stronger than that, and you aren't as weak as you think you are, because you are a human being. You can search for people and fail, and introduce yourself to people and fail, and try to get closer to people and fail. But social interaction is a skill, and like any other, requires resistance to be overcome by improving yourself, by becoming stronger, by growing. We do not surrender to despair in this household. There is somewhere you belong out there, and you will always have the potential to find your place. But that place is outside. It is not in here. What I fear is the impending elimination of objective reality brought on by the advancement of image, audio, and video generators. What I fear is a college freshman developing no critical thinking skills, because instead of learning to craft an argument, they were able to put their essay prompt into Google Gemini. We are on track to raise the next generations to be less intelligent than us, and they will live worse lives because of it. What I fear is people who desperately want to improve their skills in the arts, tricking themselves into thinking they are doing this, but actually getting nothing. What do I mean by that? Is AI not a great force for good in this regard, allowing many more people without the skills of illustration or animation or music production or writing to express themselves through these mediums they have deep passions for? Does this not allow the potential for many more people in the world to improve their experience? It does not. I apply this to all art, but I'm going to talk specifically about writing for a little bit. With great sympathy to my fellow aspiring writers, AI will not make you happy, because AI does not make writing easier. It destroys writing. The idea that ChatGPT might be a worthwhile piece of technology because it makes the fulfilling process of writing more accessible can only come from someone who hasn't thought about this topic enough and suffers from a complete misunderstanding of what writing even is. There is a difference between the process of writing, which is where fulfillment comes from, and the production of a written piece, which is the end result of the process of writing. When writing, there is certainly some joy that comes about from finally having a complete piece at the end of the process, but the mere existence of words is not nearly the full scope of the fulfillment of the passion. In that final product, you should be able to admire the fruits of every thought process you had, every word choice, every sentence structure, every decision of organization, every single character that you put there in order to express the thoughts and feelings you had in your head. You should be able to recognize these things everywhere in the final product, like a wise king looking out over the capital city at sunset, reflecting on how much the land has developed and prospered under his rule. And that's not to mention that the mere act of writing itself should be filling you with a sense of contentment as you build your piece from the ground up. But it's frustrating, you might feel. Deciding which words to use and where they should go takes so much time and effort. I have so many ideas in my head, and it hurts to not have them exist as art now. Writing is hard. Oh, you baby. Everything that's worth caring about is hard. Having the will to fight against that difficulty is what being truly passionate about something means. To keep trying to find the words to express your thoughts even when they don't come to you immediately. It is a struggle, but can you even say you love the process if you don't love the struggle? If you don't love the need to improve? If you don't love to challenge yourself, to make yourself struggle even more? Do you love writing, or do you just love words and want to attach your name to them whether you deserve to or not? Passion is endurance, motherfucker. When you tell a machine to vomit out a set of words, that's all you get. You don't get to enjoy the process of creation, and you don't get to admire the products of your creation anywhere near the same level either. If you can even call this your creation, which I don't really think you can. You are admiring a string of text with no thought behind it, the output of a glorified math formula, and you are pretending it came from you. But what would I say about laptops or even typewriters? Technologies which have made the process of writing faster and easier. If AI, just by making the process faster, is a corruption, are they not also corruptions from its original pen and paper form or stone tablet form? This, again, misunderstands what writing actually is. The process of writing involves the things I described earlier, transcription of thoughts and feelings through decisions related to structure and word choice, and the artistry in that process will still exist as long as those decisions are possible. As long as you are the one thinking about how to express yourself, agonizing over every character you write, you are writing, whether it be in ink, in pencil, in chalk, whether it be carved in stone, or typed on a computer screen. The artistry of writing is not found in the technique of applying ink to paper, for instance. That is calligraphy. calligraphy, where the choices are no longer about expression through transcribing thoughts into words, but through making characters look pretty. If I went into paint.net and typed something in fancy cursive font and said I was a very skilled calligrapher, I would be rightfully shot on the spot, because I did know agonizing over how I should curve the letters, or how thick or thin my strokes should be, or whatever else people who do calligraphy think about. This is not an argument over whether or not AI art can be considered art. I certainly have thoughts on that, but my concern here isn't even on defining these things philosophically. I care about the fulfillment of the human experience, which people often achieve by participating in their passions and improving their skills, and I don't want people to be deluded into thinking they are achieving their dreams and on the path to happiness when they are actually doing nothing but admiring vomit. I want people to feel joy. I want people to improve. I want people to be genuinely happy over things that they do. And so I want people to actually do things that they want to do, rather than rely on the end product of an algorithm for some easy dopamine. I want people to live. And so I need people to know that if you are convincing yourself that you can use AI to produce words rather than actually write, that you can use AI to produce outputs rather than actually create art, you are not going to be happy. You are killing yourself. Okay, so I know I said earlier that my message was simply to be critical about this stuff, but in the last few months of working on this, my message has become, you are going to die. I wish we lived in a moment that could align with the perspectives of Ghost in the Shell or Psychopaths, where scientific progress creates new challenges, sure, but many more opportunities, where the struggle is whether we can overcome societal issues, or even our own fear of change, so that we may adjust to new technology and experience its benefits. I want to spend my time fantasizing about how we may transcend the limitations of the human body, but that is not the moment we're living through. Technological optimism has morphed into something that can only be described as anti-human. We have ended up with technologies that hurt us, which continue to sink deeper into our society, into our lives every day, crawling deeper under our skin, seeking to replace fundamental pieces of the human experience with falsities. You don't have to develop skills anymore. ChatGPT can do that for you. You don't have to go into the office anymore, but you don't have to go outside to meet people in person either. Instead, you can stay inside and stare at our app. And maybe you don't even have to talk to real people at all anymore. You can pretend to talk to the machine learning algorithm's output instead. Don't leave your house, don't talk to other people, don't learn, don't grow. All you need is an occasional delivery of food and a constant stream of forgettable pleasure to placate you. This is not technology that seeks to enhance or expand our experience. It does not seek to improve your life. It does not seek to make impossible things possible. It is produced to take away things that make you happy. It is here to hold us back, to cease our evolution. So, to save society, technology must be reined back in to serve the interests of human experience, rather than capital, rather than the egos of the techno-feudalist, narcissistic freaks. But no one at the upper level will engage in the radical change necessary to turn us around anytime soon. In fact, at the same time, we have seen the rise of political movements which seemingly hold no reverence for many of the most substantial ways by which we have conquered nature, and their leaders love AI. The Republican Party here in the US seems to love nothing more than throwing out major triumphs of science, causing hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths, and then posting an image of a crying family generated by ChatGPT. All of these forces are united in opposition to human life, and nothing is coming to stop them. There is no vision for a better world. There is only the one that will destroy it. Supported by a president ridden with dementia being led around by tech billionaires to invest hundreds of billions more in AI. Come to terms with the fact that there is no savior for us to rely on but ourselves. Deliberate growth, even when not stifled, can only be achieved through consistent effort in the overcoming of resistance, in the transcendence over the limitations in front of you and those within yourself. Don't let yourself rely on algorithms for satisfaction. Learn instead of relying on the AI chatbot. Do something more complicated than scrolling through your explore page. Force yourself to spend less meaningless time on the internet. Make a promise that you will not neglect your children by allowing them to spend their formative years on iPads. Bully your friends and encourage your family to do the same. And make sure, with the time you get back, to do things that you love. Remember, if the things you do are not improving your experience on this earth, you don't have to do them. Find something else. There is always something else for you. And even if you fail in your pursuits, fuck it. Better to be a human dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. But no matter what we do personally, without a quick reversal of these trends at the societal level, it seems the world will darken. The future envisioned for us is one of stagnant isolation, one in which we are always inside. The days will become short and indistinguishable from the night. You will never see daylight again. And the only things left to remember us by will be the decaying ruins of AI data centers and the coal power plants built to power them. It's a bleak picture we're facing right now. I guess guess this is one of the wars we've been fated to fight through, and it does make me feel a little despair imagining what this future might hold. But what have I learned while writing this? Is there not already a narrative for us to empower ourselves with? One that shows the ability of humanity to evolve, what humanity has overcome, and what we will overcome. One directly tied to the philosopher who would have asked, what is this war but another challenge? What is this challenge but another opportunity to destroy our previous limitations? What is this opportunity but another discovery of what it means to be passionate for life, in accepting its difficulties and maintaining the will to defeat them? I know that narrative is here because I watched the damn movie. I enjoyed my time with the monkeys and got spooked by the ominous rectangle, and I thought some parts were boring, but I swear I felt myself stop breathing for at least the last 30 minutes of insane imagery, and now I haven't stopped thinking about it since watching it for the first time months ago. 2001: A Space Odyssey has taken on religious significance in my brain. With regards to the issues I have discussed, it delivers exactly the message for society resonating with me right now, presented with grandiosity worthy of its themes and a visceral power in its narrative, uniquely able to transfer itself into any human watching. So let's recall this new myth, reshape and repurpose it for our current moment, cause we need it right now. The opening fanfare to Strauss's Thus Spoke Zarathustra is called Sunrise. The era we find ourselves in is one in which technology no longer prioritizes our well-being, but the threats that have been produced are not the malicious bots of old stories. They are not HAL, they are not Skynet. They don't have a goal to destroy us. Instead, they are designed to pull us in, and if they succeed, they become a rot on our existence. They encourage us to confine ourselves to dark, isolated rooms, always connected to each other, always alone, with access to all knowledge, learning nothing. Encouraging us to rot, though, is all they can do. We've all felt the pull of instant gratification and the seduction of letting these machines siphon away our thinking and passion, but no longer. Learn to hate watching the clock tick by while you do nothing meaningful. It's time to take control of the lives we've been given. It's time to choose the fulfillment of our experience over anything else. Nothing else in the universe matters, and once we realize that, what could possibly get in the way of us human beings when we live to conquer our limitations and destroy our obstacles? As the rest of the world decays around us, we will be the ones who continue to fight. We will accept this struggle to resist the encroachment of these harmful technologies on our lives and throughout wider society, to stand up against the billionaire oligarchs who seek to poison us with them and fight back against their death cultist political allies, seeking to erase the previous era's greatest achievements. Eliminate your boredom by breaking down the walls, touch grass, spend time with people you care about, experience art, improve your skills, and achieve goals that you care about by choosing to deviate from the path of rot, by choosing to discipline yourself, by choosing to improve your skills, by choosing to interact with people. You choose to grow, to overcome, to evolve, to remain human, to remain an individual. And even if the forces we face are already too influential to be quickly purged from society, the experiences we live in our shrinking pocket will be happier, more fulfilling ones as we continue to evolve, as we continue to find beauty, as we continue to find each other. Devoid of irony poisoning, free from apathy, conquering despair, I wish everyone power in defeating the evils of this era. Maybe we'll see each other outside.